And you know what? It's so dangerous to this country what they're trying to do, because if they take the lid off the hatred and try and blame all the ills on the country, on people who are seeking refuge and asylum, what do we stand for as a country? And it's a very dangerous moment in time, because they're going to run the election on that. Ian Byrne, Member of Parliament, Liverpool, West Derby. We're here at the P&O demonstration 1 year on from the outrageous act that was committed by P&O to its workforce, and also reminding the government, who cried crocodile tears at the time, that nothing's happened, no legislation has changed, companies could still do what P&O did, and it's so detrimental. I remember speaking to some of the workforce, many from Liverpool, and the impact it had on their lives, and the company was allowed to act with absolute impunity, and that's something which we can't allow to happen again, and that's why we're here.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the effect that had on people in your constituency? Yeah,
it just had a massive impact, where it come from nowhere, where they were good, well-paid jobs. Then suddenly contracts were turned up, and it was either lose all your terms and conditions, lower wages, or thrown on the scrap heap. So it was absolutely outrageous. We'd seen it with British Gas, and it seemed to be a trend within industry. So obviously, something as an MP, with my beliefs, you've got to fight against that, and you've got to give workers far better protection, because you just cannot be allowed as a major international company to do things like they did.
Do you think this shows that the Tories don't care about British business?
I think it shows the Tories don't care about British workers, and I think that was exemplified by the crocodile tears that were cried in Parliament from the Prime Minister downwards, saying they were going to commit to change, and say absolutely nothing's happened. This could happen again tomorrow to any major company, so it's really worrying. Obviously it's in the Labour Party manifesto to ban these type of practices, but that could be 18 months away, and that's why Mick, Louise and many other people will be speaking today to highlight to the government, to remind them that they've got to act.
What would the government stand to gain from not sorting out this situation?
Well, it's who they represent, isn't it? They represent the people who committed these acts. That's who they're here to represent. That's who they're elected to represent. And they've done their job by doing nothing, saying nothing, except, as I said, crocodile tears. So for me, it shows the government in all its inaction.
I just want to ask you about the immigration bill that had its second reading yesterday in the Commons. Which way will you be voting on that?
I voted against. I spoke against it. It was a horrible 3.5 hours, 4 hours, I think. Some of the rhetoric that was spewed out of mouths, it was just totally awful. We had Tory backbenchers blaming 13 years of austerity on people seeking refuge and sanctuary from wars. It was really unedifying, and I said in my speech, it shamed this place that we're there to represent. And it was a difficult 4 hours.
In Liverpool, what would the reaction be to the immigration bill? Is it pro it, or are they more welcoming?
Oh no, I think that they're totally against it. Obviously, we've got some instances at the moment where the far right are mobilising and trying to, create havoc, and we've seen it in Knowsley 5 weeks ago. But I'd say 99% of the people in this country hopefully are fair-minded, and certainly Liverpool's a city of refuge and sanctuary, it always has been. We've got to win the argument. No, you've got to win the argument. You've got to be brave enough to win the argument, and that's something which you've got to do. And there were some fantastic speeches last night within the chamber who put forward counter-arguments to the Tory rhetoric and poison. And you know what? It's so dangerous to this country what they're trying to do, because if they take the lid off the hatred and try and blame all the ills on the country, on people who are seeking refuge and asylum, what do we stand for as a country? And it's a very dangerous moment in time, because they're going to run the election on that.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, Lee Anderson, the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, said that they were going to have to win the election on a culture war. I mean, do you think we're going to see a lot more of this? Do you think it's going to... that situation you were just talking about in Knowsley, actually, which was a riot and a fire outside a hotel housing migrants. Do you think that this rhetoric is incentivising that?
Oh, I do, absolutely, yeah, I do. It's, it's the rhetoric of division, hate and poison, and it's really worrying, to be honest, that we could have 18 months before an election, and if they are, like Anderson said, and some of the contributions that were made last night typified what he was saying, it seems to be a direction of travel. It's really worrying for the country, because we've had, since Brexit, we've had division, and now, this is a further example of it. It's really, really worrying, honestly, really worries me. I spoke to many people last week about it in Liverpool and how we need to be ahead of the curve, but it's about education, and it's about making the argument that, people come to our shores should be welcomed, They can be a massive asset for society, and it really, really worries me, some of the nonsense that's spewed out in that chamber, which then obviously goes out into, you know, common discourse and is utilised by the far right.
So was Gary Lineker right to post the tweet?
Well, Gary Lineker was absolutely spot on, and so was John Barnes. If you'd seen John Barnes in the morning, on Sunday morning, everything Barnes was saying as well, I think, you know, we've got to be brave enough to take it on and what do we want as a country? What do we want to be seen globally? How do we want to be portrayed globally? And, you know, I do worry that if we let the people, or some elements of the Conservative Party, drive the political agenda, we'll be a far poorer country for it.